Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Silver Lyming. I have another fabulous guest here with me today. This is another person from the Lyme community that I've come into contact with actually a couple different ways. And possibly, I think the first time I ever heard of your company, and we'll get to that, but was maybe like 5 years ago at an ILADS conference. So even there was the starting of this. But my guest today is Dr. Susan Eisen, and she also goes by Sue. So if you're looking for her on social media, you can find her that way as well. She is a functional medicine doctor, holistic chiropractor, and founder of TikTok Naturals, which is, I think probably I knew your product before maybe I knew your name. And it's one of my most favorite things. I just made a post about it not too long ago, actually. If anybody's looking for a good natural repellent, and I know that you'll go more into this with us, but this is my favorite. It smells the best to me. I feel good putting it on my body for a lot of different reasons. There's no chemicals. And I know that after talking more with Dr. Sue, that there's so much more information just about the chemistry and the actual composition of how she makes her products that I find incredibly fascinating. So I'm so glad that I came into contact with your products long ago. And I've been using them faithfully since. I've got it in my garage. So it's right by my lawn care stuff that I spray, and then out I go from the garage to go do my gardening or whatever else happens. So thank you for being here today. And if you wouldn't mind, could you please do share a little bit more, because I find your story is beautiful. So many of these stories are beautiful with the silver liming and just what you've come to get out of your experience here with Lyme. But if you would share more with us about your experience with Lyme and how you became involved in this world, please.
Yes, absolutely. First of all, thank you for having me on here today. And I got started, my little story is like not uncommon for many stories. Like we say, I was recruited by a tick. And at the time, I didn't know anything about ticks or the diseases that they carry. It's not something that was really, studied that much in school. I did have a patient who had Lyme disease, so I did understand some of the symptomatology associated with Lyme. And to be fair to her, I always felt like she was a little bit hyper, is a good way to put it. And now I completely understand it. But I was bitten by a tick in 2008 in the middle of winter, of all things, and had no idea. As we know, most tick bites go undetected. And I just started feeling fatigued, if you will, and having foggy vision. In my case, I feel that it actually went up into my vitreous humor. Lucky me. But basically, it took me a few weeks, and in the back of my head, I just kept hearing Lyme disease. So I was doing tons of research, and I then came to decide that I had Lyme disease. I did have a very mild erythema migrans. I remembered that I had a scab on the back of my neck. So as a diagnostician, I was putting all of these things together. I went to the doctor next door to my practice in New Jersey and, armed with all of my information, he gave me a 2-week prescription for doxycycline. I like to say I had to arm wrestle him for the 3rd week. And at that point, I already knew I needed a minimum of 45 days. So there was that. And there's a lot of gaslighting that goes on, even amongst medical personnel. And everyone, I can't emphasize enough, must advocate for themselves. But basically, I took my 21 days from him and then moved on to find another physician who could give me a prescription for the additional doxycycline. In this particular case, I had a very severe case of neuroborreliosis, or neurological Lyme disease. So it affected me very much so, more so than joint pain. It affected me neurologically. And I developed a very strong case of OCD, which was very overwhelming, to say the least. And I did continue to practice, even though I had fatigue. I was able to just continue doing what I was doing and take the antibiotics. And so that's what I did. Took my probiotics, restricted dairy, did everything I could possibly do. I was already having a clean diet, so I just continued with that. And I am sure that benefited me in a lot of ways. And I'll just quickly say that as I was on the antibiotics and getting through the therapy, I did notice that my OCD went away and completely has never returned.
Oh, good. Oh, good. That's good, because I had more neurologically based symptoms too. And I remember the OCD, the anxiety, I cried a lot. It was just a lot more negative spectrum emotions that were really heightened in me. And so I can appreciate that. It is debilitating that in and of itself, because like it just turns you into a whole other person.
It's crazy. I couldn't spell, word retrieval. I laughed at myself. So because for me, it was just an infection. Little did I know.
Yeah, right. I think that's a lot of people too. It's like, so many of us go for so long and you get a diagnosis and it's before you really know about other things, right? Before you really know, you just see the tip of the iceberg. You're like, oh, okay, good. I'm so grateful for a diagnosis and I can just take some antibiotics and be better. And like so many of us find out that's not necessarily the case. And that's sad because we're kind of misled into believing it's not anything to really fear, or that it's just a minimal little infection that really doesn't do anything to you. But you and I and countless others, unfortunately, are good proof to the contrary, unfortunately. Okay, and so then you got bit back in 2010?
2008, yeah.
2008. Okay, and so then your symptoms kind of manifested immediately? Was it slowly over time?
I probably talk about, well, for starters, I didn't know that I had a tick bite, and I did have, as I said, this guy crawled, or her or him, whoever, probably her, crawled up to the back of my neck, and basically, I had no idea. So, and then I remember having an itch on the back of my neck, and a scab came off, which I thought was very odd, an odd place for a scab.
Yeah. Okay. And so then once you got diagnosed, you were able to get antibiotics, get yourself on probiotics. Did you do any kind of supplements? I'm pretty sure that's a part of what you do now to kind of help yourself.
Since I'm a natural medicine doctor, I do tend to try to at least have some sort of a preventative protocol, although I want to say I've stepped it up more so after the fact. But that will come a little further in our story. I actually had 2 cases of Lyme disease because in, I guess, 2015 or 16, I was bitten by a spider in my apartment. By that time, I already knew, oh my goodness, okay, I could have Bartonella. I didn't even think Lyme, but I knew that spiders could carry Bartonella. So I didn't get on antibiotics at that point. I just decided to wait and see what happened. Obviously, I didn't have a spider to have tested, or I don't even know if they were doing accurate testing at that point. But I knew enough. I was working with Global Lyme Alliance at that point. And so basically, I just did a wait and see. And it took about 3, I guess, maybe it was 2015. It took about 3 years or something. And then that's when I started having mild symptoms of migratory joint pain and burning under the feet. No neurological deficits or symptoms whatsoever. And to move forward, by that time, if you want to know, I was working with Sam Spoon's foundation, and I had the opportunity to meet Neil Spector, Dr. Spector. Actually, he was the one that told me more than likely I had Lyme and not Bartonella, which floored me. But
and so do you know why he felt that?
Because we were at an event for on the board of directors for Sam Spoons, and they have an event this was pre-pandemic. And so all of the board members had to be there, and basically I just don't have any Bartonella rash on my body anywhere. So there are some very typical rashes associated with Bartonella, as I'm sure we all know.
And just for the listeners' sake, can you talk more about what that rash looks like for Bartonella? And do all people get it?
Like you might have lots of red lines all over the body, or it could even look like, I guess, cellulite rash, like stretch marks all over the body. And they can be red, they can be white. So it's very particular.
Does everybody with Bartonella get those stretch marks?
It's very germane to Bartonella, but I don't know if if everyone does. Honestly, I don't know what the percentage is.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I know about the rash that you get from it, but I just wasn't sure if everyone has it, because I supposedly had Bartonella, but I don't think I've had that rash. So that's why I'm like, I don't know if it applies to all people that get it or not, but
that's a very good question that should be answered. I wonder if there's anything in the medical literature.
Yeah, I can try to research that after this, and then if any of our listeners know, please feel free to drop us a message in the chat here. We would love to know your thoughts on that.
It's a little crazy.
Get it. Oh, yeah, sorry. Hopefully you don't fly away on us. That would not be very good. And so then if you can tell us then a little bit more about, what has really kind of happened for you as a result of getting Lyme and tick-borne illness. I think what I'm kind of getting at is the course you've gone with your career. If you could kind of fill in a little bit more about that and exactly what you do now to help people, please.
So after that conversation with Dr. Spector, I went back to my office in New York and decided to, take a bottle of what I had been giving a lot of my Lyme patients to begin with. I do tend to focus, my philosophy is less is more. It's the hardest thing for me to impart to my patients, my Lyme patients sometimes, because I feel they're over medicating, even with natural supplements, and it's just too much of a drag on the liver and the kidneys. Anyway, so I started with one product and I took it according to the dosage of what I was recommending and what I thought was best for myself. And I went through 2 bottles, and I'll say what I didn't say was that I was also having a ton of floaters, which had showed up. And that's where I'm, myself questioning whether or not the original Lyme was actually completely cured. But because they do hide in places like joints, eyeballs, and brain, they just go where they cannot be detected. But I started taking this maitake mushroom, very purified serum, and in about 4 to 5 weeks, all of my symptoms disappeared, 95%. Not 100%, but 95%. And I do, continue to take stuff on and off. And then, of course, we entered into the COVID pandemic phase of our lives. So basically, I then was even doing more things to keep myself and immune system boosted. So
yeah, good job, because in particular during that phase, that's really something we want to pay attention to. Just overall in general. And I feel like all the things that you do for yourself with a clean diet, understanding how to mitigate stress, because that's another thing I think we could probably touch on a little bit, is just how much stress really impacts people. Getting enough sleep, just being sensible with yourself to ensure that your immune system has enough support in the first place, to try to help to prevent other things from coming along and happening to us. And then, so you actually treat people, you treat patients with Lyme.
Oh, I'm sorry, my other phone is ringing.
That happens sometimes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. So I was just asking, so you actually do treat people with Lyme and tick-borne illness?
I do, as well as patients with COVID. I do natural medicine. I've got my protocols that I've put together that work amazingly well. And what you said about stress is very true. I notice that at stressful moments, like, I start to have maybe a mild return of some symptoms. And even as recently as a couple of weeks ago, I felt like I started having issues with floaters again, which is annoying. And my vision was just not as good of visual acuity. So I actually started on something that is just a kind of broad spectrum herbal product called Cryptolepis. I'm sure a lot of your listeners have heard about that product, and I'm taking it. I like this one here.
Okay, thank you.
By Orthomolecular. But I've been taking it for about a week now, and all my weird floaters are already starting to go away. So having been contracting a second time, it's definitely chronic, although it was a much weaker strain
the second time. And I wonder if that's the difference in the insect that bit you, that passed it on to you. Do you think that has anything to do with it? Like, do spiders carry it in less concentration than ticks?
We all know mosquitoes, ticks, even lice, they're saying, and fleas and spiders and what have you, they all carry a complement of infectious disease.
Yeah, and I actually had a friend who got stung by a wasp, and he contracted Lyme from the wasp.
Wow.
Yeah, and I asked, it was funny, I asked one of the bug spray people, I was like, hey, because I get my property treated for ticks here, but I was like, have you ever heard of that? He's like, that's not possible. And I was like, well, I Googled it and I looked into it a bit more. Not that I don't believe my friend either, but I did see a fair amount of information that corroborates that. So,
well, it's everything. Let's just go with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then can you tell us a little bit more about your company that you started, please? And the product that you make that helps to keep so many of us safe in so many ways, please.
Because of my OCD, which was just so bizarre to me, and then the symptoms just being completely resolved with antibiotic treatment.
That's what I was just going to ask. Like how fast? So that's what I was just going to ask you. So your OCD lasted for just a brief window of time for you.
That's correct. Okay. It went. All of my neurological deficits, if you will, word retrieval, spelling, all of it, all returned. And the OCD completely just went away. I'm not OCD. I wasn't before, and I'm not anymore. Anyway, if people want to read about it, obviously on my Instagram, I do go into some detail, as well as I wrote an article, which I have posted on both my TikTok Naturals website and my regular drsusaneisen.com website, in great detail. It was very funny to me, but not funny. But at any rate, during the time that I was researching to discover what was wrong with me, and I already at that point had my mindset that it was Lyme disease, and what I was trying to do was disprove or eliminate Lyme disease. I started to read a lot about different products and insect repellents, and that are, I guess, bactericidal, if you will, in some way, or antimicrobial, or repellent, properties. And so it went in the back of my head. And at a certain point, I didn't even really have a formula at that point, but my background training was in molecular biology and biochemistry. So I have a mind for science. I'm not afraid to do any deep dives in any of the research studies or what have you. And so I kind of had an idea in my head, and then I met with a patient who works in New York, is a publicist and PR, and she introduced me to Ali Hilfiger.
Cool.
And then we set up meetings, and that was where TikTok Naturals was born. I had the formula, and Ali who was very ill at the time still, just collaborated as far as I'll give you my blessings on, the smell and the feel and the packaging and what have you.
Cool. I didn't realize that connection either. That's awesome. That's even more special.
And that's how I got involved with Global Lyme Alliance, actually.
I see. But you are in New York, correct?
Yeah.
Good. I went to one of the galas for GLA up in Connecticut, but right outside the city, which was fun. So I'm glad that you have that community support too. And then, so your product, which I had mentioned at the beginning of this, is definitely my favorite natural repellent. I've tried a couple different kinds, and nothing beats the smell. Nothing beats the feel to me. I don't feel like it's not greasy or gross, but it has such a nice citrus smell to it, and that's what draws me to it. I want to.
It smells like lemon drops. It's so
want to eat it. Yeah.
But there's no lemon in it because that could cause us, a sunburn. So.
So tell me then more about, if you can, your specific blend, and why did you choose the things that you put into it?
Well, I have obviously a lot of the repelling essential oils. I do want to say it is not only does it smell amazing and feel amazing, it's completely different chemistry from the other repellents out there, in that this is hydrophilic, meaning it's water loving. A lot of the repellents try to be water repellent or waterproof, and it makes the ingredients kind of at odds with one another. With this product, everything is in oil, so it all just completely blends together in the best possible way, keeping the bioactivity of all of the repelling essential oils, in which primarily we have lemongrass, thyme, rosemary, geranium, and a couple of others that basically, but it's the formulation so that everybody, it all does what it's supposed to do, but you don't smell the bad stuff, you only smell the good stuff, I guess, but it works. And we actually recommend, you had mentioned that you keep your bottle in your garage, which is a good place to have a bottle, but I would also recommend and do recommend that people apply it all over their body before they get dressed. Okay. So, and even out of the shower, you can use it as a body lotion replacement, which extends the time of effective, I guess, repellency, for lack of a better way of putting it. We say it lasts 5 hours, but if you put it on out of the shower, you can actually get it to last for closer to 8 hours. And it works. We obviously like people to put it on before they get dressed so that it's all over the feet, legs, everywhere, and let it soak in and then get dressed.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you're reviewing that with me because it's important to understand the actual way to apply the product. And I'm sorry if your directions say to do that and I've missed that, but yes, thanks for reviewing that with us.
I don't think I said to apply it before you get dressed. I should do a post, on that and maybe some more of that. But I just find that it works better if you do that. And I do always recommend that people bring the bottle with them, even if they don't think they're going to be in a situation, so that in case they are, they can have it and apply it.
Understood. Yes. I should say I take mine with me when I go outside, like from my home, leaving my home property and go out to like hike.
You never know.
That happens occasionally.
Well,
yeah, it's like occasionally I do go for a hike. I still try to enjoy nature. And when I go on those kinds of excursions, I certainly take this. But I'm glad to know because again, it smells so good to me that I could certainly see wearing it all day. It didn't really occur to me that that's what I should.
I can tell you that one of my patients who's very active with Generation Lyme, she went on a walk on the Adirondack or the Appalachian Trail. I mean, not Adirondacks, and was going to be camping outside, maybe in a tent or in, a platform tent, and was very concerned. And of course, she took TikTok and was very diligent about applying it. And she came back, no tick bites, no nothing. So great. That was the ultimate test.
Yeah.
I can also tell you from a mosquito perspective, before this product was launched into the marketplace, it was tested on the island of Borneo and, worked against mosquitoes just as well.
Great. That's good to know. And that's kind of, it's like, how do you really test this? Obviously, there's control tests that you can do, but I think nothing really takes the place of real life examples of how people use it and what they're doing with their bodies. And so that's good to know that you've had that testing that's been successful. And then also, I guess along these lines, so I often get asked by people if chemicals are good choices to use, like what's the best repellent really to use? And I always hedge because I'm like,
I'll give you a little chemistry lesson.
Thanks.
All product ingredients are chemicals. It's if they're synthetic chemicals. And basically, and because of that, like obviously there's dangers to everything. So you always want to make sure that something is safe. I don't think that synthetic chemicals are a very good way to go, like DEET, for example, to put on your skin. It's a very toxic chemical. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I also don't like picardirin because it is also a synthetic chemical that is manufactured by the owners of Monsanto, which is Bayer, and we know that there have been problems with some of their ingredients. I think everyone should make their own decision about these things, but I guess if there is actually a very good, long-lasting, effective alternative, I do recommend that all chronic Lyme or any chronic illness or any person who has a compromised immune system should be using clean, natural ingredients. They should be eating clean food, non-GMO, organic. All of the ingredients in TikTok Naturals are organic and non-GMO and sourced from the best resources where they are not extracted with hexane. We've been hearing a lot about hexane lately. Everything is cold pressed and with the proper extraction methods and organic, as clean as it possibly can be from our ingredient source. I do want to say most natural products do not last most of them will last for 60 to 90 minutes at best. And it's because of the ingredient-based structure that they're utilizing. Stuff evaporates, it just doesn't stay put. But with this product, it actually, it like adheres to the skin and it stays put. And again, we were telling everyone, oh, make sure you reapply it if you go in the water. And anecdotally, we were just hearing over and over again that it still was active because of it being hydrophilic. It actually didn't wash off. Yeah, you can wash it off with soap and water, but not just with, jumping in the water. So it does offer an extra layer of protection that I'm not sure the other natural repellents do offer. As far as the synthetic chemical repellents, obviously, I'm also into, keeping a nice green planet and not killing the coral reef and what have you, keeping our ecosystems healthy. So this really does, check all the boxes in that regard.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. And then you read my mind in wondering where you're sourcing it, if it's organic products. I would imagine that it was. Is that something that I can also put on my dog?
Actually, yes, TikTok Naturals can be put on dogs. We tell people make sure to put it on their paws, like between their toes, best. And we, have been saying we are going to come out with a dog line, which will be a little bit different, with a couple of extra maybe added ingredients and a different application method so that it works better. But you can absolutely use this on your dogs, apply it, like I said, on their feet, back of tail, hiney area, ears, just maybe pat a little around, not in the eyes, but like around here, just on the sides of the face a little bit. And, obviously, the back of the ruff and the front. And just wipe any excess, like if you're applying it on yourself, you can wipe the excess over their fur. It's really the smell that the insects don't care for.
Yep. Okay, cool. Thanks. Because I have tried a couple others on him.
And it's 100% non-toxic for dogs.
Yeah, thanks. Because I've tried some other ones for him. The smell is not the same as yours. And so I like to try to keep things on him, but sometimes things also like stink so bad that I don't do such a good job with it. So
Right.
There's that. Cool. So I think that's pretty helpful then too, and just also maybe some words of advice or encouragement for people, like trying to figure out some things that they can do with regard to like clean eating and just setting yourself up again for the best success. Stress, reducing stress as much as possible, because we know that that can be a trigger. Getting enough rest, making sure you're getting exposure to sunlight and things naturally. I know it's a little bit hard for people potentially that have had Lyme or tick-borne illness. I'm kind of maybe speaking for myself, but like going outside then also becomes a little bit harder because I'm like paranoid that I'm going to come into contact with another tick. Exactly.
That's why we have this.
Exactly. Thank you.
I take it with me all the time, even in New York City. So
yeah, because that's another good point, is that sometimes people think, oh, I'm only in the city, I'm not going to be in contact with any kind of ticks. They're everywhere. It's not just the country, not just hiking, they're everywhere.
Yes, we all become quite phobic, to be honest. So
yeah, rightly so. And then if you could, given that we are here on the silver liming, and I feel like we've talked about this, but what would be the best thing that's happened to you as a result of getting Lyme and tick-borne illness?
So the best thing I want to say is formulating and developing my company, TikTok Naturals, never would have happened if I did not have Lyme disease and go through all of this. I do also think it's very important that people remember to separate themselves from the illness. But the best thing that you can do is absolutely prevention. I feel that this is the first thing. Obviously, clean eating and taking supplements to keep your immune system healthy, whether you have Lyme or not, is something that I feel everyone should do. And obviously something that the pandemic kind of made us think about, you know, the importance of having a healthy immune system. But yes, the first step in preventing Lyme or Bartonella or any of the other co-infections would be to wear insect repellent every single day, you know, whether it's summer, winter, what have you. And because you never know when you're going to encounter a spider like I did and then get sick all over again with a different strain. I would like to say I think this is the best product and everyone should be buying this product for so many reasons, even though it's a little bit more expensive. It actually, because it lasts longer, it actually, you're not going through the product as quickly as some of the cheaper alternatives, I guess I would say. And also, the one thing I do want to add about the pricing is that even though it's a little more expensive, it's because all of our ingredients are just superior and clean. I've already, gone through this with my manufacturer to try and, figure out why some other brands are so inexpensive. And what he's told me is that they're doing a little bit of greenwashing, even if it says organic in the name of the brand, in order for them to be able to charge so little, you're not really getting what you think you're getting. And that's a really important consideration. At the end of the day, we just don't want to get bitten again. That's it.
Correct. You put me in a padded room. I was waiting for results. Had a tick. I think now maybe 3 years ago, knock on wood. And I found it right away, but oh my God, I was like needing to go to a padded room for a while just until I got the results back from it being tested, because I know, that's like the last thing that you want to do is get reinfected, oh God, or infected at all. So incredibly good advice for those who are listening that maybe don't quite get the severity of what Lyme and tick-borne illness can do. Because again, I feel like it's taught that we're like, oh, you're just going to take a couple weeks of antibiotics and you'll be fine. I can tell you that's not the case. And the best thing that you can do for yourself is just to avoid it altogether. We've not even talked about the fact that half the time cost for treatment is not paid for by insurance. You're left on the hook to pay for that out of pocket. And there's so many things that are hidden surprises that you get when you contract Lyme and tick-borne illness that you probably wouldn't have thought about in your worst nightmares. And so again, something as pleasant as what your product is, in my opinion, how it smells, how it feels, can make a huge difference in whether you're going to get this or not. And to also reiterate, 500,000 people a year are infected in the United States alone. Like, that's huge. That's really like a cause for alarm. I didn't find the cost of your product to be that offensive. I don't know if people complain to you about the cost. But,
this one little bottle could take you through almost a whole year, depending on, maybe not a whole year, but definitely more than a summer season.
Absolutely.
Although, like I said, I do recommend that people apply it, as often as they are ever leaving their house before they leave the house.
Yeah.
It's such a simple thing, basically.
Well, you're making me think about, you make me think about too, like pay the farmer now or pay the pharmacist later. I don't know if people have heard this before, but it's this kind of thing with this product. Like, you're going to pay for the cheap stuff that's chemical or whatever that's going to be more detrimental to your health in the long run, versus pay a little bit more now. You've got something that's natural and going to keep you safe and protect you, that will also serve your long-term health goals as well.
Truly is the worry that, people are so sick with chronic Lyme. I, follow a lot of the stories, and it kind of amazes me that they use like such strong chemical, synthetic chemical products, and there's a toxic burden that our bodies cannot overcome. So certainly we need to be as kind as we can to ourselves.
Yes, yes, and that's huge. And so that's why I applaud the type of medicine that you practice. I study Ayurveda on my own, and the toxic burden that is put upon us in our liver and how that functions. And I appreciate the fact that you're aware that even taking natural supplements can also be a huge burden to the body and maybe do more harm than good if you're taking too much, because we can't effectively process these things. And from an Ayurvedic standpoint, I've been taught that, our livers are already hugely inflamed and angry because of all the stuff that they're already being forced into dealing with, that then when we take a supplement, it just hits it all at once, causing a reaction and triggers a lot of different things happening in the body. So,
which is why I don't know if this is an Ayurvedic ritual, but I do take like some olive oil and lemon with cayenne pepper, like a little mixture, about that big in the morning before I do anything, because it just helps to kind of flush the liver and get the toxins out. I don't know. Is that Ayurvedic?
And we often would say to maybe have some warm lemon water or lime water to help to stimulate the organs right away in the morning, tongue scraping. But I can appreciate the oil because obviously that just oleates the body from the inside out to help to loosen trapped toxins and things, keep the inside soft and pliable so things don't get trapped and stuck to it. And the cayenne, I've been learning so much about that lately. I can't think of the lady's name right now. And I was like, I'll never forget her name. But of course, that doesn't always work. But she was talking about cayenne and how it can help to heal things like stomach ulcers. And it would be kind of counterintuitive to people because you're like, oh, it's going to burn. Why would you do that? But it burns it. And I don't know if she was saying almost like cauterizes it, but
I saw that video also.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely true.
Linda O'Brien, what is
people should sprinkle it on everything, and I mostly do. Not to the point of burning, but obviously you can sprinkle a little heat. Yeah, the heat just, it alters the pH and just, kind of purifies, and it's good for cardiovascular, just everything that you can think of. So, and it helps with the blood flow and all of this.
Not surprised at all. Yeah, I love it, especially in the winter. It's like a nice thing to have to warm you up from the inside out. And I don't make it that I'm like, I do like hot things though. But I actually recommended it to my buddy. I was like, he's having some stomach problems. I said, I think you really should drink some cayenne water.
That's crazy. But
yeah. Well, he was having some other issues, but I just felt like that was going to help him. And I know he's going to consider trying it. So we'll see if he did. But it's beautiful the things that we can actually do to help the body once we are aware of them with these natural supplements and chemicals, if you will. And I do take some supplements, but I actually have been taught to put them on in lotion form so that they bypass my liver. It goes directly through my skin into my bloodstream, and I bypass my liver. So I take vitamin D that way, magnesium. What else do I put on? CoQ10 and a couple other things to help. A lot of times with stress and anxiety, that tends to be how I'm wired. So I put these things on to help to diffuse that. But that's just something I've learned about more recently too. And it's just important, again, to learn about that stuff to help to support ourselves. It's going to be our best bet in the long run.
Absolutely.
So, do you have any last words of advice for people? I mean, again, I feel like you've given a lot, but.
Well, I'll say it again, you're not your illness, no matter what your illness is. You are not your illness. Like, you should keep your psyche, no matter how much anxiety and panic and depression you may be having because of the illness, or just because of the length of time that you're dealing with this. I feel like it's just an infection. I don't want to make light of it, but the most important thing you can do for yourself is remember that you are not this disease. Don't become, embrace being this, diseased person. Just do what you can to increase and, strengthen your immune system. That's why my focus when I'm working with Lyme patients is to do everything to enhance the immune system and also up the mitochondria and on a cellular level to be able to get the cell membranes working properly so you can get the toxins in and out of the cell. It's very important, but you can do it with just a few complex supplements instead of taking a barrage of 50 different items.
And that's helpful to know too. If someone was interested to work with you, do we have to be in New York? Are you doing telehealth?
No, I do telehealth. So I absolutely work with people all over. I've worked with many people in the Lyme community, some who are, names that are very well known and respected, who I can't really say, and been able to help them. People would be surprised, but my funny little less is more approach has been extremely effective.
That's awesome. And I do thank you for calling out the fact with not overtaking the disease on in terms of an identity. I think that's a really huge thing. My dad pointed it out to me. He's like, you got to stop saying you're Anne with Lyme disease. Like, you can't just, that's not who you are. That's not your identity. Stop it. And that was a big, okay, I get it. That was one of my small turning points. And so,
yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you did come to that epiphany. For me, because I'm a doctor and I diagnose conditions and what have you all day, most days, I didn't take on Lyme as my persona. I laughed my way through the entire thing when I was, not feeling great, or if I can say it, I got my period and then it hit me even harder, at that point. But I just kind of pushed through it and just kept thinking, I'm going to overcome this. This is just an infection, and I'm just going to do everything that I need to do to overcome it. And even if it's not 100% cleared from my body, I am 100% functional.
Yes, which
that's
is beautiful.
What is the most important thing.
That's right. And that's why sometimes people are like, after the fact, they're better and they're like, maybe I should get tested. And it's like, I don't know. How are you feeling? Are you feeling good? Maybe you just kind of leave it at that, because that is really ultimately, if you're functioning, you're healthy that way. Sometimes it doesn't even matter if it's still living in your body. I think it's more that maybe you figured out a way to peacefully coexist, or you've gotten your immune system functioning well enough that, again, you can peacefully coexist. Your immune system will function adequately enough to support you that you're not going to feel the symptoms of it.
This is true. And I do think eventually they are going to come up with a cure in some way. It's why I think Dr. Spector's demise was the greatest loss that we've ever had in this community. But I don't know if you know a lot about what his research was and what he was working with, but there's some really interesting things coming down the pike. I'm not saying I'm averse to antibiotics at all. Of course, I don't want people to have Herxheimer or bad reaction, but it would be awesome if we could all clear our systems of this for sure and never get it again. But as we know, there's no such thing as immunity to Lyme disease. I won't touch on the vaccines that are being worked on. But basically, again, I just feel prevention is the best medicine.
Agreed. 100%, 110%. You just avoid it altogether in the first place. You don't have to worry about anything in the last place. So that's huge. And I know that there are some things coming. I'm excited. I feel like there's a good amount of grassroots efforts being made I had a friend's sister reach out to me to interview me, but she's making some devices that are wearable that you would wear for a week, and it collects, I don't know if it's your RNA or your DNA, something, and then you send it in, and it's a much more accurate test to see if you actually have contracted Lyme and tick-borne illness. And so, yeah, I was really happy she called and, talked more, and she just wanted to understand our perspective a little bit better and how this could actually be applied. Her boyfriend had Lyme, and so it's something personal to her. But I think that's a lot of people like you, it gives me goosebumps to think about this. It's like a lot of people like you have been touched by it in an unfortunate experience, that we got it, but then you turn it into something amazing and beautiful to help to prevent it, because you understand how horrible it is and you want to do your best to make sure that nobody else comes into contact with it. And so I applaud you for finding strength in a time of weakness, and for making yourself into what you have, and the evolution that you've gone through on a soul level, because it's not easy. And people can sometimes really look at this illness from the outside and, again, kind of just like minimize it and not really see it for what it is. But it's something that can completely change you in the blink of an eye, and touch so many areas of our body. Nothing is sacred. Every organ, every cell, everything can be affected by this. So again, thank you for making a product that I'm very comfortable to use. I'm really more into the natural side any longer, and I've learned a lot in my journey too. And I'm just grateful I have resources like you to come to for help. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I love the name of your podcast. It's actually perfect.
Thank you. That's what I just want to give hope, right? There is hope in this darkness. Like, it is a really dark space for us to crawl through, but we can come out the other side. And here's two people who are very good examples of that. And that's what I want our viewers and listeners to know and to understand. If you're in the darkest space right now and you're super sick, please don't give up. Please know that it is possible, that you can get better, that you can recover. You could reach out to people like Dr. Sue here, myself, just to get some good foundations in place for you to support yourself. She's a lot more versed on the medical side than I am, that can get it much more in the complexity of things. But there are people out there that can help you. So just hang in there, and please listen to some of these other podcasts. You'll hear of other people who have gotten better too, and it's doable. If we can do it, you can do it. So thank you for listening. And thank you again, Dr. Sue, for being here with us. I really appreciate you very, very much.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Have a good afternoon. Thank you.
Well, bye.
Bye.